When you're lost in the darkness, look for the ClickerCast. Welcome back, everyone, to our very special limited run series right here on GamerGuild TV, where we break down every single episode of HBO's The Last of Us series, from its plot to its characters, its video game comparisons, and every spore-sized detail in between. We're coming to you live every Wednesday, so do get your questions in. Join us in the live chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. That's very specific bell for this episode to signal the incoming horde of content we have here on the GamerGuild TV, including our weekly podcast, the GamerGuild Podcast, where myself and Richie get together to round up all of the week's video game news, sometimes with our best friends, and of course all the other video game content we have here. Your hosts for this week's show are myself, as always, Chris at Arcane Rogue on social media, and the brick to my bottle, your fellow co-host, my fellow co-host, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, what a hello for this week, Richie. We're two episodes in. It's happened. The big thing happened. Ellie got older.
She did.
She did. And shit went down, as they say. Of course, folks, we're here for episode 2, titled Through the Valley, directed this time by someone a bit different than the usual Neil and Craig, who usually step up to the plate. This one was directed by Mark Mylod, who I don't think people are that familiar with his work, but he has done some big episodes of Game of Thrones, and he has done some episodes of Succession in the past, so he's kind of a HBO stalwart at this point, like a go-to director. So to come in on this episode, quite a big one for him to get in, and I feel like tactically done by Craig and Neil to almost give the reins over to someone who's not as deeply involved in the show, because it's such an important episode to tell, if that makes sense. You know, when sometimes it's better to take a step back out of the spotlight a little bit, out of the weeds, or the mycelial roots, to coin a pun, and hand it over to someone else who's got an expert lineage in delivering quality TV content. Written, as usually, by Neil, Haley Weger-Gross and Craig Mazin for this one. And the plot summary is, as a storm brews in the mountains, the people of Jackson Hole prepare for the worst amid increasing sightings of infected. Meanwhile, Abby weighs her options, and boy does she weigh her options, Richie.
God, yeah.
They really, really do. Again, I think before we get into it, big shout out to everyone who tuned in for last week's episode, especially over on YouTube. Thank you very much. It's hugely appreciated. We, of course, do this as a spin-off as our normal gaming content, where we dive into something a little bit deeper, a little bit more TV-centric. It gives us a chance to flex our muscles here on the channel. So thank you for everyone who's tuned in and listened on podcast services, where, of course, you can get this live pretty much immediately after the show finishes. We try and get the audio feeds up for everyone's morning commute, everyone's late commute, depending on where you are in the world. But yes, we had a fun episode, and I say fun in, of course, negative terms.
Yeah, I wouldn't say fun is the word I would use. Exciting.
Yeah, we knew it was coming.
Traumatic.
But we didn't know when. As we always start each show, Richie, with just overall impressions of the episode, thoughts?
I actually thought it was an amazing episode of television. They've made some decisions to change things, change what characters are in certain places. But overall, I think it worked. They added extra things in with going on with Jackson. Yeah. Which I enjoyed as well. It was nice to have them actions building on multiple fronts.
Yeah, I echo that. I think the stuff they added in, I think as someone who's played the game so many times, is seeing different elements of the world that weren't portrayed in the game is really nice to see, because it's done so beautifully well, and the budget is clearly there for the show, especially some elements of Jackson, which you only see briefly in the game, really, but to see fully lived in, I think we mentioned it a few times on last week's show, it's just nice to see it expanded on a little bit.
Well, this week I have listened to the official Last of Us podcast, and they mentioned the battle in Jackson, taking almost like a full movie-like approach to that one section of the show, where they meticulously planned out every single detail of every single shot, so it'd tell its own story. So it's like, which you could be forgiven if you played the games thinking of, oh, this is just filler, just to pad in the running of the show. But they put so much effort into it, and it shows. Yeah,
it really, really did. It felt at times very reminiscent of, I said to my wife while we were watching, like, it felt like they were preparing for Helm's Deep in the Two Towers. Like they're like getting the barricades ready. There's the people up on the on the ramparts, and you kind of see them prep for like how they're going to take this mass army down, or whatever it may be. And at the same time, it mirrored a lot of, with it being HBO, it mirrored a lot of Game of Thrones with I don't know if it was Hard Home up in the snowy hills. That was similar with like the kind of dead hitting against the walls and burrowing, getting through. Or like the Battle of Winterfell, which obviously I think some people loved it, some people hated it, with the kind of the remnants of that in the end. We had a lot more light, I will say in this one. It being in the snow white daytime as opposed to the dark of Winterfell was nice to see, because I remember watching that episode back in the day. And on Now TV, which we have in the UK, the streaming service, the blacks...
Terrible streaming quality.
Terrible. And yeah, the blacks end up scattering all over the place. So this being in the full white snow of day was brilliant. And I think it added a lot to just the detail that we're looking for, especially as people who break down the episode. Yeah, but my overall impressions, I thought it was an absolute stellar piece of television. I don't know what more they could have done to make this episode better.
I have no issues at all with any decision making or the execution of any aspect of this episode.
Yeah, there was part of me which did think nearing the end, having like the big battle sequence, which almost felt like a finale, tied with the subtleties and the importance of the Joel and Abby situation, where they're detracting themselves from each other a bit. But I've watched the episode twice now, and I think they do kind of give alternate routes to kind of both ending up in an utter shit position. So I think they do mirror each other's storylines quite well. But I can see how some people, maybe from the drastic, insane action set pieces down to such the subtle, nuanced conversational parts, they are slightly polar opposite to each other. But I think upon a second watching, I think it does completely work. And I think it was another amazing piece of television, from the CGI to the acting, the music, the performances, like the way it was all interlinked, just told a really strong, coherent story. And realistically, Richie, this is where the story of season 2 and subsequently season 3 really begins for our characters now. Or some of them, at least.
In the game, the end of this episode is basically, I think, the end of the prologue. Because this is what's giving Ellie her motivations that drives forward the rest of the game. Absolutely.
And in a way, we've also got Tommy, which I think, because of the events in the show and the way they changed a few things, I think Gabrielle Luna, who plays Tommy, is going to be more at the forefront of potentially the end of season 2 and then maybe into season 3 as a fellow protagonist alongside the likes of Ellie, Dina, and Abby.
He's an interesting one to touch into because of the way they change things with where he was and what he was doing during the events of this episode. He's now going to be a lot more conflicted. Because in the game, the battle in Jackson doesn't happen. So he's very clear, one-minded what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Where now he's conflicted between overseeing probably potentially the rebuild of Jackson, helping the survivors out, and then also pursuing Abby and her gang. And it's interesting that it was Dina they paired up with Joel.
Yeah, it was definitely a choice.
I think that's probably because Dina spends so much time with Ellie in the game. Now, because Dina was there for them events, it might be easier to tell that story.
Yeah.
Through Dina a bit more.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see a lot more of that with these characters, and I think already the show's shown that they can expand on that stuff in a lot more detail. And I think some of the characters, and especially the stories, I'm just really, really looking forward to see how they kind of expand over the coming weeks, because we've only got 5 more weeks left now, which is, I know the season is shorter, but maybe we'll get one of those episodes that are like 1 hour 32 minutes long or something that does expand it out. But shall we dig into the plot as we do on the show, Richie?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think it's time. Let's crack those pipes open and pull out the mycelial roots, shall we? We open this week in I want to say that corridor, because if you've played the game, you know the corridor. You
know what that corridor means.
Yeah, and that siren, it's very reminiscent of, the siren they use in Star Wars, that deep like Empire siren that triggers when like they're running to the TIE fighter base or something. It's that sound that it's got such like a tone to it. It just immediately puts you in a feared position. And we get that alarm blaring out in a dark corridor, and we see a 19-year-old Abby walking towards the exit, which I guess is towards the surgery room from the end of season 1, where we discussed last week. We know from the show is what happened at St. Mary's Hospital in Salt Lake City. And we appear to be in a dream sequence, Richie, which is a different tact for the show. We've not seen dream sequences before, to my recollection. And we see Abby talking to Abby, telling her to not go in there. His brains are all over the floor. Or on the floor, which is like graphic detail. And then we see the younger Abby. Yeah, she kind of calls herself a liar and goes in. And I'm just curious to get your thoughts on what was the choice behind this? Because in the game there are flashbacks to this moment as the stories kind of intertwined together, but we don't get to that till quite a while later. And I think on episode 2 to just go like, we're putting them pieces together, who Abby is and why she might have a reason to go after Joel.
I think it's important for the show to set her motivations of what she's about to do properly, and especially double down on it in this episode. Where in the game, you don't really need to know Abby's motivations beyond she was former Firefly.
Yeah.
While you're playing the Ellie section of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then you learn about more about Abby and her motivations through the Abby section of the game, where these are very discrete, separate entities in the game.
Yeah,
you can't do that with a TV show. You're not playing as Abby, so you need to understand who she is as a character right out the gate. When dual this season has dual protagonists, Abby and Ellie, where the game does it, but it separates them.
Yeah, and as the player, you are experiencing that story predominantly through.
It's a different medium, so you need to tell the story in a different way.
Yeah, and I think we both theorized on this leading up to it that they would have to portray this element differently. Otherwise, it's one thing in the game, subverting expectations, and as you said, allowing you to play as Abby, and you're designed to not like her in that moment in time because of what she's done. But in the show, you are hands off. You are just an observer seeing the story pan out in front of you. And I think we both said going into it that they could make a very drastic mistake early on in the series and making the general audience hate Abby. But then the difference between a game is, again, someone could just not tune in next week or go, I'm done with the show now, and turn over because certain things happened. And we've seen that time and time again with other TV series, like when, I don't know how far into The Walking Dead you got, but certain characters they killed off during one of the seasons. And I remember some of our friends were just like, I'm done now. The show's got too serious. But then on the flip side, Game of Thrones did that quite regular. If you've not been paying attention so far, you've not seen anything yet. And that keep people coming back for more. So this could go either way.
The problem I think with The Walking Dead is they just kept it going and going and going and going and finding ways to do it. And occasionally, it's when you're killing off a character because the actor wants out of his contract rather than he's a solid narrative reason that you've been planning for a long time. That's where Game of Thrones has done it well, by planning the characters because it's a continuous narrative. Same with The Last of Us. These are continuous narratives. Certain characters are going to die over the course of that narrative.
Yeah.
So it's different.
So we'll see if, I guess, we see more dream sequences and or flashbacks in future episodes. I'm sure we will, because they are a big part of the game. So interesting start there. Then of course we cut to current day Abby. She wakes up inside the ski lodge, which we knew they were in at the end of last week, but they arrived in the middle of the night. So they only saw, I think at the very end of the episode, we saw them seeing like a couple of the lights of the city of Jackson down below. But they've now woke up in the middle of morning. It's as I said, bright white, sunny, well, not clear day because there's a storm imminent. But they can overlook the valley where Jackson resides, and they kind of come to the realization that it's not a small camp. And they kind of very quickly, I think, they wake a couple of the other ones up, and you can almost see one by one them change their mind about pursuing Abby's goal here. Of like, I think one of them say, I think it might be Nora, who's like, oh, it's a fucking city, Abs. Like, we thought, and then I think Mel says, we thought the lights were going to be like just using generators from back at the WLF fob, and they have like gated sentries, dogs, power lines, which is like, their mission essentially just got a whole lot more complex, and you can kind of see that on each of the actors' faces as they go through it. And you can almost see Abby's persistence in this moment. It doesn't deter her at all. She's just like, right, what's the plan? Like, how do we get into it? What's next? And they kind of discuss the formation. This is where Owen kind of you can almost tell Owen's like second in command of the group. He's got Abby's ear a little bit. They obviously have that dynamic of a relationship, but at the same time, he's not as hell-bent on revenge as Abby is. He's clearly one side detached, so he's a bit more the voice of reason, I would say, when they're going through these moments.
In some ways, I think Owen is kind of the leader of the group, but he's going ahead with what Abby wants to do.
Yeah.
But I think everyone looks to him rather than to Abby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like she's the military leader almost, and he's the non-wartime leader, like the parliament or something.
She's the one who's kind of put the team together. We're going to go do this, but it's actually Owen who's the one who's actually got his head screwed on properly and making the sensible decisions. He's leading the group.
Yeah. To
try and fulfill Abby's ambition.
Yeah, and we don't know what the relationship is with Isaac and the crew back in Seattle yet. So Owen might be like just they're like lieutenant within their team maybe. Yeah. When they're going on the shifts back in Seattle, and because Abby does refer to Isaac and the team and the kind of she's been in a militia group for 5 years now, so these are trained experts as far as this world goes now. So yeah, it's interesting to see where that plays out and how it's going to play out. So we know where they are. They're very, very close proximity to all the action that's about to pop off. We then cut away to Ellie and the guitar in the room of a garage, again, next door to Joel's house, the morning after the dance we saw at the end of last week's episode. Point I wanted to bring up, Richie, I saw a couple of things on the internet over the last day or two. The guitar's in the room with Ellie. Now, the last we saw of last episode, Joel fixed the guitar strings and he was sat playing it on the porch. Now, in the game, we know right at the very end that guitar and Joel and that scene on the porch comes back into light. Now, at the end of last week, we saw Ellie see Joel on the porch and just kept walking. The guitar being in her garage room now suggests that some point between episodes, she got the guitar back. So must have spoke to Joel again, which is very important to, I think, the way this episode plays out.
Well, that's actually in the game. That's how things play out. You play through that section in fragments. But we never in the show, in episode 1, saw Ellie actually go into her garage.
She just kind of walked past it. Yeah.
She goes up to it, then it moves on to the next scene.
Yeah, true. So I think there's a nugget there.
Yeah, I think that's a hint leading to the fact that more happened in that scene. Yeah. Obviously, me and you, we know what happens, but if you're only watching this from the perspective of a TV show, it's a little nugget there. It's like something's happened. She's got her guitar back.
Yeah, and we get a bit more of this.
On a stand, not just chucked on the floor. On a stand.
There's a bit more respect for the guitar coming back into it. But we get a bit more of that in a moment. Jesse knocks on the door for the patrol. Ellie's obviously possibly hungover. We don't know how long the after party went into the night of these New Year's celebrations with Ellie and Dina and such. But yes, 8 a.m. or 7:30, ready for shift. Jesse gives her a bit of stick about the nights because Ellie does that typical thing of when you get caught out of telling lies, is speaking way too much, way too soon. He's just there to get her on a shift and some stuff went down with Joel last night, and Ellie straight away gives it away that Dina kissed her, obviously Jesse's ex-girlfriend at the time, and they're all supposed to be best friends. Why would she do that? And Jesse, he's totally winding her up, and I love how this scene played out almost like 1-for-1 of the game. Goes to slam the door on him the other way, so he cuts the door and he's like, oh, still pretty fucked up that you did that though. Like really just like good cadence and good bit of light comedy, I guess, where we don't see much of it in this show. They then head out into the town. We kind of see in the background the townspeople preparing. I think, again, this is the big part that isn't in the game. You very much just wander around in like the tutorial section almost. There's no threat. There's nothing happening. But this episode really ramps up that actually the town is busy. Like people are going about. You see them rolling barrels, collecting stuff, moving items around the town. I guess preparing for something. And very quickly we see that they're preparing. But Jesse does explain at this point. We get a little bit of set up, don't we, about saying that another group had found 30 infected out on patrol. And they were hiding beneath a frozen layer of other infected.
Which is why the preparations are...
Yeah, very different. And that tied with last episode when Ellie told them about the stalker who she found. There must be that imminent feeling of like, it's been quiet around Jackson for way too long. And I think it's always probably better to be cautious rather than not.
Jesse even mentions that Ellie told the council that there was like a super intelligent infected out there. So that and the reports of infected hiding, 30 infected hide beneath a layer of frozen infected. That's got the council going. We're going to double down preparation to make sure. Let's check our defenses. Let's just make sure we're good.
Yeah, and what I do quite like about that, and I've seen it echoed in a few of the other podcasts and such, is that traditionally in these type of shows and movies is the townspeople, the extras, the background cast, they always get caught out in moments like this where someone warns them of an imminent threat. The hero of the show, the hero of the movie says, this has just happened, I've just saw it. And then everyone pleads ignorance and gets caught with their pants down when shit hits the fan. And it's nice to actually see that, no, they've actually done what you would do in reality. They've taken on board the events that have happened. They've listened and observed, and they are acting ahead of time rather than going, oh, what's that out in the distance? Is that hundreds of infected that we've had no expectation or and it's actually no, they're prepping, they're doing their routines, they're getting things ready just in case, they're running drills. Whereas how many movies have you seen where it is always like that guy just looks out and then shit, he gets killed in the head or something, shit pops off and then they have to react in the moment, whereas now they are preparing well ahead of anything happening.
It makes sense. It makes the whole town of Jackson and the show feel grounded in reality because with all the shit that these people being through with infected, reports that they've had recently with the 30 infected hiding and the stalker, then they are going to go, oh, bad things can happen. We all know what the bad things are. Let's do everything we can to make sure they don't happen. You're not going to be lackadaisical with this stuff. You're going to be on top of it.
Yeah. So it's nice to see, just a bit refreshing. I think that's what this show's always done, is it's felt grounded.
Which I actually think lends more, when we've already mentioned the battle that happens, it adds even more stakes because, they've been preparing for this and then things still don't go to plan. Yeah.
Indeed, you can try your absolute hardest. We get that back and forth between Ellie and Jesse. Jesse obviously prying a little bit further into Ellie's relationship. She's really at the end of her tether with people talking about it, like why is it always me and Joel? And it comes from a good place. We know that Dina, Jesse, Maria, it's all just like, we want you to bond well. It's like seeing a father and daughter essentially fall out. Is if you're friends with both parties, you want to help mend those bridges as best you can.
Yeah, but I totally get from Ellie's point of view. If she's constantly be pissed about it, things are rocky between them. They know that eventually things are going to get patched up. You just want people to butt out and let you get on with it, don't you?
And I think it does come from the fact that nobody on the outside knows what it's about. Like, only Tommy surely is the only one who actually knows why she's pissed off at him. And again, at this moment in the show, as an audience, we don't really know why Ellie's pissed off. I mean, we suspect, but if we get the similar scene to the game where she goes... Again, I guess spoilers for the game if you didn't watch episode 1 and you're this far into the episode 2 breakdown... Yeah, there's a certain thing that Ellie does in probably the months or weeks before this that then leads to why they had such a falling out. But I won't get into it here. We then find out that Ellie wants to go on patrol with Joel. She's had enough of Jesse. She wants to head out with Joel, which again I think goes back to seeing the guitar in her room, and she's clearly in a better place with him where she's willing to go out on patrol for some daddy-daughter time, as she says. Yeah. And it's too late. Joel already left with Dina. So again, this is, I think, for me, the first part where I was like, oh, Joel's not with Tommy out on patrol. He's with Dina. Yeah. And Ellie's going to end up with Jesse instead of Dina. So there's already this divergence in the video game, which I think ended up telling a really good variation on the story.
Yeah, I agree. I have no problems with the changes. And as I said earlier, I feel like this change sets up Dina being more knowledgeable of the situation, more believably knowledgeable, rather than having to hear everything that happened from Ellie. Dina's there for it.
Yeah, and I think in the future episodes, the future days, one might say, I think that's going to really play into its own, with Dina being clearly one of the main characters of this season.
And they've set up the relationship between Dina and Joel much more than they did in the games.
And that'll be very important come later on. We then see them kind of enter the building where Tommy's running his main drills with the townspeople. He's kind of going around like, what do we do in an emergency? Some stupid young girl says we run into the woods. Jokes. The sea can Maria, which I did actually like the introduction of Maria. Do you see when Ellie went to approach her, she went to say something straight away, Maria like cut her off and said wait until he's finished, like almost like this is how important these drills are. You don't just come in and start talking in the background of an event. We've all been in like assemblies before, conferences where some dickhead's talking at the back and you're like, dude, seriously, we're in the middle of something important and you're chatting away about what your plans are for the weekend or something. It's like, no, everyone, eyes forward, listen to the guy who's in charge. This is important stuff. And I think it just adds a bit more to like Maria's character. She really does run this town with Tommy. Like it's them two at the front and center. Don't be an Earl, Richie. Don't be an Earl.
I also got the impression that Tommy wasn't used to standing up in front of the entire town and talking like that.
Maybe it's in Joel's absence, perhaps. Yeah, like two brothers would do it traditionally. But yeah, don't be an Earl. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Nice little bit again, light comedy sprinkled in there. So yeah, meet Maria. She kind of oversees an apology between Ellie and Seth, who's the guy with the homophobic slurs at the party the night before. This is part of the game. He makes them steak sandwiches, and Ellie, I think she calls them bigot sandwiches, right, in the game when she gives them a gesture. She's like, "You want some bigot sandwiches?" I like how this played out. Again, it's that you can almost see it's like an older generation apologizing to a teenager who's like, "Yeah, I accept your apology, but I also don't at the same time." Like it's just pleasantries, if anything.
The way I described it, it's like Maria as a school teacher with two naughty kids who've had an argument. One of them's had to say the words saying, "I'm sorry." The other's had to accept the apology, but neither of them actually mean it.
Yeah, shake hands and go back to class.
Like, shake hands, we move on from this. No, they're not friends. They still don't like each other. Ellie doesn't accept his apology, but there's this bit of conflict. We're moving on from this. It's that kind of, we've acknowledged it, we're moving on. You don't get to dwell on this shit.
Yeah. Which again, I guess it sets the rules of the town a bit more. That they have very traditional rules. Like, you don't let this fester and get worse and worse. Like, even though you don't get along, like we won't have any of this kind of shit going on within our groups. So yes, shake hands, make up, and Ellie storms off with the sandwiches. Thanks everyone. We then cut to Abby. She's taking her first shift on patrol. She heads out to the mountainside for an hour, and we really get a sense of how cold it is outside. I think from the Caitlin Devers kind of just the cheeks go immediately red, absolutely closed in, shivering cold. And we kind of get the moment of Owen being confronted by the rest of the group where they're all like, "You've got a plan then?" And Owen's plan is to convince Abby to turn back. Which I think, you can almost see like all of them have had little words amongst themselves. And then once Abby goes out on patrol, they all sneak up to the real leader and go like, "Dude, what are we doing here? What's the plan?" And again, Owen, quite level-headed, say like, the best plan of action we've got now is convince her this isn't the right idea. And because all who's going to die, it's going to be us. And they would be right. If they actually try to get into Jackson, just like, the 6 of them, you're talking, we're about to witness the strength of Jackson. So... they
haven't got a chance.
Yeah, it would be foolhardy. And I think some of the plans we didn't mention, but they did discuss earlier on, like I think Abby was like, we can capture a patrol, we'll make them talk, and then what? Because we can't let them go free.
And they called Abby out on that because they said we weren't going to harm anyone else, just Joel. Yeah. And then it's like, what do we do? Once we've captured them, made them talk, can't let them go free. Yeah. How are you going to actually make them talk without harming them? It's like, clearly you can see that Abby is willing to do anything and the rest of her team are skeptical. It might be one of them. When they set out, they were, but they've had time to dwell on it.
Months probably to get across the US from where St. Mary's Hospital was, Salt Lake. But I think we start to see the kind of difference in personalities. Mel immediately is one for calling out Abby, saying like, we didn't agree to this. And Mel's the medic in the group, which we learn later on, and you can almost tell her senses. Her role is to help people and to heal people, not to cause violence and aggression on others. So she's there because she obviously gets along with them all, and she's part of the Fireflies. But you can tell her mind very early on is like, I'm here for Joel, and that's it. And as soon as other people are involved, potentially capturing people, potentially torturing people for information, you can see she's not in and out. I get the vibe Manny's a little bit more on Abby's side from this. You kind of get that. He nods along. The camera cuts him a few times as he nods through certain things. But I think ultimately, they all look at that city and go, I'd rather survive and we should turn back.
Yeah.
Like the logic side. But Abby's not driven by logic.
No, she's driven by hatred, where the rest of them, they've had 5 years to dwell on what Joel did. And now they've found him. Don't.
Sorry, you cut out briefly there.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, like, after 5 years, they don't seem to have the appetite to go through with it.
Yeah, which is completely understandable, right? If you ask me,
especially once to see Jackson.
Yeah, 100%. It makes sense. We then cut back to Jesse and Ellie on patrol. They're radioed ahead. Tommy gets the radio crew to basically send out a message saying, take cover or return to base. The storm's getting really bad out there. Jesse and Ellie take cover in a location Jesse knows about, which is from one of his former runs with Eugene, again referencing Eugene, who we know was the husband of the therapist in the episode 1, Catherine O'Hara's character, which is going to come into play because he has a standalone episode. So I guess this is the location which we might see, which is a 7-Eleven full of weed, which is Eugene's cheeky weed farm on the side where he clearly used to go on patrol, get baked as anything, Richie, and just forget about his worries. Not a bad scene to be in, I guess, in the day. But it's interesting, this story, because this is where I guess we get the pivot of switching out characters. So in the game, this is where the storm hits and Ellie and Dina take shelter in a building, a library, I think it is, and then they find underground in the library's basement. This is where the farm is, and you can see Eugene's clearly cultivated tons of weed there. It's grown, and they kind of get high and get it on. In that scene, and we're not going to get that here because Dina's not around. So in the game, I think it's actually in the game, Jesse interrupts them getting on, or getting the clothes back on, we should say, and then he's
they're just chilling, smoking weed afterwards, and Jesse comes in and is like,
have you seen Joel? Where's Joel? Like, Joel's missing. Joel and Tommy haven't called back in, and that's when the panic kicks in. But we don't get that here. We see Jesse and Ellie take off from the storm. They're kind of rummaging through stuff, referencing Eugene. And I think a few key facts we need to be aware of here is, like, Eugene was in the Fireflies. We see Ellie find his little Firefly pendant. And we know ourselves, Tommy was also in the Fireflies. So presumably they've kind of ended up at Jackson together many, many years back when Tommy broke away. Maybe he went with a couple of other folks, similar to Abby's crew now. And they stumbled across this group in Jackson and then thought, you know what? I'm done killing people. We know from the first game, the first season, Tommy used to be in the military and he's out. Jesse references it here. Eugene fought in Vietnam. So they're both ex-military as well, both ex-Fireflies, and they found themselves in Jackson, Wyoming, seemingly looking for a quiet life and not having to kill people. So, but you can almost see how they're setting the breadcrumbs up for this standalone episode, because they make a big point of saying, like, oh, it's a shame Joel had to put him down the way he did. And they're really driving this message of Eugene and Joel's outcome is going to be an interesting one to look out for in that episode to come.
It's going to be an interesting episode, the Eugene episode, because it could feel superfluous. It's where the Bill episode kind of did set up things for Ellie to continue Ellie and Joel's journey.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting how the themes of the Eugene episode ties into what the main story.
Yeah, there's something's going to have to happen for it to be as impactful. And I guess if you rewind 2 years ago, you and me, before we saw the episode with Bill and Frank, because I sat there and said, why are they doing an episode with just Bill and Frank? They're just two side characters. All he does is helps them get a car battery and gets them on their way. If we get that level of quality, then this could be another stellar episode. Maybe between Joe Pantaloni or whatever he's called and Catherine O'Hara's characters, their relationship. We get to see a bit more Pedro acting as well. And we'll get back to that one. But of course, they're stuck in there when the radio cult does eventually come through and say, we haven't heard from Joel and Dina, which immediately you can imagine. I think they're out the door before she's even finished radioing what her message is. But we'll get back to that one. We then cut away to Abby's hunt for the patrol. Earlier on, she, of course, was about to turn back, right, because it was so cold. And then she heard the horses in the background, saw there was a patrol, pursued the patrol. Presumably this is Joel and Dina, right? Out on the horseback?
Yeah, I think that is Joel and Dina. I don't think Abby has a clue who they are, though.
No, I think
no way she knows. Yeah.
No, even looking through the binoculars, like you wouldn't. It's just two people on horseback. But yeah, she attempts to kind of slide down a snowy hillside before utterly losing her footing and goes on a big roll all the way down the hill. Somehow loses all of her weapons. Did you notice that? Both a gun and a rifle are gone when she lands.
Yeah, she loses them, but then she doesn't look for them.
But what
Initially,
she, yeah.
I think she gets distracted by what she finds,
Oh yes,
and then doesn't have a chance to go for them.
Oh yes, she ends up in a massive frozen pile of infected, which it is the tutorial scene from the game. You do switch over to Abby after the opening scene in Jackson with Ellie, and you do find some infected in the snow. They try and grab you. You walk around a little bit. It's kind of introducing you to the basics of combat in the game. You've got a couple of bullets in your hand, in your pistol, but we get Abby and we see the frozen infected, and this is I guess where we see the infected come to life from underneath their little heat blanket that they make with the dead. You think there's a clicker's head. I think he's going to get her, and then it almost like whirlpools, right, with movement, and then the clicker's kind of like, you think it's the clicker moving, but it's almost like the ice just breaking away around him, and then
as the frozen ones slide back under and the living ones emerge.
Yeah, I'm not sure the physics of how ice works in that scenario, but it did look very fluid for what was happening. And before we know it, she's being chased by a horde, and she just legs it. She's like, right, now is not the time to, I guess, look for my weapons or sneak slowly through the snow. They've been awoken. And which is very, very different from the game. We don't really see hordes in the game that much. It's very much been a focus of the show. We see a lot of them, but I don't think we see like hordes on this scale chasing it. You're talking like what, 60, 70 of them maybe?
Yeah, you don't really in the game, but I suppose that's because the game is more meant to be a bit more methodical, slow, stealthy. So you can't be throwing tons of hordes at the player.
Yeah, you want
we're not playing a game.
You want to go play Days Gone. That's got hordes. But I digress. So yes, chased by the horde. She climbs over the walls into the copper mine, which, if you recall back earlier on, is it's the code name for Joel and Dina's patrol. Is copper mine, come in, copper mine, return to base.
Yeah.
So we make our way along the chain link fence of these before the horde does eventually catch around the other side of the building, and we pretty much get a 1-for-1 accurate scene of the fence scene from the game where Abby just gets crushed against the wall, the claustrophobia. Like, what a scene, right?
One of the infected is reaching for her, and literally the links in the chain split its hand.
Oh, I know.
It's that desperate. It's like,
it's like, you know, when the paper cut hurts in that part of your hand. Imagine forcing a steel piece of metal wire through it to the point where you're almost at the wrist.
In between, like the bones in your fingers, like just the aggression. It's grotesque. It's amazing.
It just shows you like they're totally out of control of their bodies, and their sole purpose is get Abby. And the fence breaks, it pins her down. You get that long camera shot of her crawling. She's got so little room, right, to even get any kind of like body momentum. She's just dragging herself through what little space is left, as their literally teeth must be inches away from her face and everything. So yeah, really ramping up the horror. Very, very well done. Similar to the scene in the shop with Ellie and the Stalker last week. That was like typical like classic horror 101 of like, just get your protagonist, jam them in claustrophobic style, throw everything at them, chomping teeth and
realistic
fingers.
as well. There's a fence there. That fence wasn't built to keep out a horde of infected who are slamming themselves into it with as much aggression and force as they are.
Yeah.
That fence would get knocked over. The uprights, they're hollow tubes. They will bend.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's what we're seeing there. It's like,
yeah, and it's you're right. The aggression of like the sheer careless aggression we kind of see later on when the infected hit the walls of Jackson. And obviously giant tree logs are definitely stronger than this chain fence we've got here. But yeah, Abby's pinned down. She crawls her way through. One or two of them manage to break through the fence eventually, and they kind of crawl towards her, get her pinned down on top, and ultimately we see the gun come in just as the infected probably would have took a chunk out of Abby. And then bang, bullet to the head. You get that kind of ringing muted sound that they always use in movies and TV now. And she's saved, Richie, by none other than Joel. You see, he reaches out a hand.
Yep.
You see Sarah's watch, or his watch, I guess that Sarah fixed from in there. Offers the hand, get up, can you run? Get inside the building. And it's at that moment. You can imagine that moment if you've not played the games. of like,
Yeah.
just, oh shit, it's the one person we don't want to be with each other right now.
It's interesting though, because Joel pretty much fires the gun right next to her ear. So she has that kind of deaf ring from the gun. So it's like when I think Dina shouts Joel, you don't know Abby's even heard that. She might at this point. There's still that ambiguity of, does she know who this is?
I got from just the expression. I think when she's kind of gets in, she's getting her breath, she's leaning against the pillar, and I think Dina shouts up like 2 or 3 times, doesn't she? Like, Joel,
I think it's the first time. Like, and I think she hears the last time's like, and she kind of thinks it clicks.
Yeah, well, she reaches for a gun, I think, and it's gone. She reaches for a holster, and she's like, shit. She like, I don't know what your plan was in that moment, just take him out immediately. But she obviously then has the next moments to think about it. Is they get on horseback, they kind of flee away from the horde, break through the door, and this is where Abby suggests, she's like, I have friends, we've got ammo, supplies, like we can help as the horde do break through. Into it. So we know now, it's like, shit, Joel and Abby are literally on horseback together. He's just saved her life, and will that count for anything? We'll find out soon enough, because we then cut across to Jackson to witness continued construction work. So not only are they prepping the town, they're continuing the work from last week, which makes sense, right? Not everyone's going to be on patrol. Not everyone's going to be in the drill layout. They do still have important, like, just, I guess, general construction work to get on with. And you see them, crack open more pipe. But unlike last week when they pulled out dry dead roots, this time the guy pries open the pipe, and we see the kind of the mycelial root network kind of reaching out. And at the end of last week with the sparkler landed next to the weeds, we were like, oh shit. Now it's very clear that guy, the look on that guy's face is like, oh, this is bad stuff to be finding.
Yeah, it's the same pipe, isn't it? Because it's literally, this is the morning after.
Yeah, it's New Year's Day, 2029. Cheers. Get ready for the worst New Year's Day in history.
So it's like, okay, his job in that morning is right, I need to go clean out the pipes. Pulled out and went, shit.
Should have stayed in bed. But we see his face. I think he immediately says, like, this is where they need to start triggering the bell. Like, he's aware of clearly finding this route is a bad sign of things to come. Yeah. And interestingly enough, we kind of pan back to the group chasing him, finding the route. Sorry, it kind of triggers another group of infected to emerge out of the snow from like another part of the forest. And I don't know if you noticed it when it panned out. You could see the group chasing Joel, Dina, and Abby on horseback, and then the group coming down out of the forest, which he's just triggered you by breaking the pipe. They kind of both shift direction and head toward, like a river flowing, towards the city. And then immediately Joel, like, they're just left, aren't they? The focus is now pivoted.
Well, that's it. Which I think is an interesting way how they've done it, because in the game you have a few more action sections with Joel, Tommy, and Abby to fight through before they get to the ski lodge.
Yeah, you're fighting them in the copper mine, kind of like. Is it the copper mine or is it the lodge? Because there's
it's a cable car thing.
Cable cars, yeah.
Yeah,
so probably part of the lodge.
So it's at the top of the ski lift, I think, before they go and then they go to the lodge.
Yeah,
where this is the way, because it obviously chose not to do that scene.
Yeah,
the roots in the pipe now means that that horde that's chasing Joel and Abby and Dina are pivoting. They've changed targets.
Yeah, and of course this goes back to the whole Jackson sequence. The battle isn't in the game, so just like when Abby and Joel arrive on horseback back at the lodge, there's a lot of I think Abby's crew run out and they're using like Molotovs, they're using rifles, and they get in and kind of shut like a big steel gate outside the ski resort. Whereas now, we see the threat pivots and turns towards Jackson, which is where the action really does ramp up towards it almost being like a season finale. So they head off towards the town. We then cut to the bells are being rang, preparing for battle. As you said earlier on, like big comparisons to Helm's Deep here. You see the ramparts. You see them looking out into almost the void to see if the Urukai are coming through in amongst all the bad weather. Almost one for one. You see them preparing. Difference is, Richie, they have rifles now instead of old men throwing rocks, so they have a little bit more impact. But yeah, town's bells are ringing. The Jackson defenders are preparing for battle, and we kind of cut away from Joel and them for quite a while now. I think we get a good like 15-minute window almost of just a battle, And I'm glad they didn't cut away from it, because it always frustrates me sometimes in movies where you're in the thick of it and then they just go, and anyway, we'll return to that viewing in 5 minutes' time. And I get for pacing why they do it sometimes. But yeah, we see them come out of the snow, out of the storm, I guess, and we very quickly realise one by one the people of Jackson, like, this is it. This is it. There's not just a couple of them, there is hundreds of them. This is what the drills are for. And as you said, they've already been preparing on those ramparts. They've got the barrels prepared. They've got like the little slides to get them out. This is clearly a tactic that they've thought about. You see them they park the trucks in front of the gate. So they're not just using like the normal gate barricades. They're fully like they park 2 cars up. They put blocks underneath the wheels so they can't shove. They park a tractor behind it. So they are like tactically using everything. Yeah, they absolutely have. And this would be it, wouldn't it? In like another type of show or a different world of this telling of the story, they break through the gate.
They'll just be going about the business. They'll ring the bell, and then no one knows what to do.
Yeah, everyone panics. They break through the gate. Yeah. They climb over the top, and in a way, the defenses held up quite well. I felt the wall did its job for the most part. They were rinsing through those bullets quickly, mind. Yeah. What do you think of the barrel tactics? Roll it out, pop a few holes in it,
smart.
Hold out, then light it. Any tactics smart. you would have used?
I like the barrel tactic because it got them clustered together, and that's what you want. You want to get as many of them on fire as you can, so you can get that ring of fire going. So as more come in, they have a higher chance of catching fire. Now the issue is, it's fucking freezing. That's going to be hard to burn anything in that temperature. So you need to get that heat hot enough to go. So it's probably harder to do than it appeared.
Yeah.
I would have built trenches around the outside.
That's what I was getting at, right? You've got this massive wall and barricade, and I feel like you always default back to like medieval warfare. What worked well then?
Yeah, because it worked.
Yeah, you work on an angle, so then the attacking team have to use energy to get up a hillside or make it difficult for them. Imagine if they had like an ice wall at like a 45-degree gradient just outside, like for them to slippery and try and get themselves up. But I think you're talking about trenches with spikes. Back to our Game of Thrones.
A deep, wide trench full of stuff that would make their lives very, very difficult to like traverse.
Yeah, and these guys are running around brain dead, right? Just some palisades, like spikes, just sticking out in any direction. They would run into them without a care in the world and then take themselves out. Like Vietnam warfare, like spike traps, bear traps, like any kind of hunting things you've got, like lay the outside. Other than the main road leading up to the city, everywhere scattered with like booby traps, pits, just everything.
It'd take a long time to do, but I think you could build a trench all the way around Jackson. Just getting enough people digging, taking enough time to do it.
I mean, they have diggers. They literally have a tractor. Diggers, but again, all jokes aside, it's probably a CGI budget reasons. They probably would have happily had a pit, have loads fall in, almost fill the pit up, and then they run over the top of each other. Would have been a nice scene, but they didn't need it.
For most of the time Jackson seemed to exist, they've had maybe the odd 1 or 2 raiders, the odd infected here and there, but it's largely been peaceful. They've not witnessed anything to this scale.
Absolutely. And Maker of Chaos in the chat says, it's a great way to burn down your own fortifications using fire when your walls are literally made of wood. Yeah, I did think that too. So yeah, great observation. Of course, Joel and Dina witnessed the explosions off in the distance, and they almost like they immediately go to pivot of like, shit, we need to get back home. And you can almost see Abby, she digs deep for this, and she like looks down, opens her mouth, and she's like, I haven't. And she's like, I can't let this moment get away. And she's like, she practically screams at them like, the lodge is only a minute away. Like, my friends are just around the corner. Like, you can hear like almost like the gutturalness in her voice of like, I can't let him just run. Like, I can't be taken now into Jackson. Like, I've got them exactly where I want them. They need help. We're so close to being like just outnumbering them, right? She's 2-1 right now, and she has no weapons. But if she gets back there, she knows immediately everyone in that room is going to get it. So but we're still in the thick of the fight. very quickly, we can see them getting through the bullets. They're taking down quite a lot of them. It's working. I think the benefit of the infected attacking is they don't have anything to throw back up. They don't have crossbows like the Uruk-hai had in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, there's no trebuchets or anything. There's no Grons, Hammer of the Underworld at the gate.
I didn't think it was working that well. It didn't feel they were sustaining it, but it didn't feel like they were taking down any significant numbers.
Yeah, but as you saw when they ran and just face planted the wall.
Yeah.
These are like tree trunks they've cut down essentially, aren't they? They're not. It's not a wooden fence. These are full-on blocks of I don't know what, like solid 100-year-old oak that they've dug down from the nearby forests. So yeah, a human being running not just a human being, a slightly mouldy, broken down human being running headlong into a wooden block. It works out quite well. So yeah, everything's going seemingly okay for the defenders, but then the horde with their kind of like hive mind. Pivot away, Richie, and they start running down the side, and you immediately know something's wrong when they shift direction mid-battle. And we're introduced to. I've dubbed him in our notes as Captain Bloater because they kind of rally behind him at this point. You hear the noise, don't you, off camera first of like the
Captain Bloater.
Yeah, his theme tune kicks in. Dun, dun. Like, here he is.
Captain Bloater.
And it's interesting how kind of Tommy knows in this instant. As soon as he knows they've got a bloater with them, he shouts to everyone, says like they're gonna breach. Before he's even started attacking the wall, he's like, they're gonna breach. Like everyone on the wall, we need to move along to this guy now, because switch to phase 2 of the defense plan, I guess. When the main gate's breached, you pull back, and they go into like tactics too.
I like how Tommy called it the breach before it was breached as well, because he's like, that wall's going down. Let's get into places now.
Yeah, do it now. Forget the main. It is just like kind of like we've done as much as we can on the front layer. Pull back to the second level.
As soon as that bloater's in play, he knows the wall's breached.
Yeah,
so get ready to take down the bloater.
We saw Bloater in season 1 with his strength when he just kind of tore up. What was he called?
Just ripping people in half.
Who was that? The main guy, the guy who actually played Tommy in the game played him. He was he was like the lieutenant to the woman in it, wasn't she? Can't remember his name. It'll be in our notes somewhere. Yeah. Jeffrey Pierce, I think the actor was called. Either way, he got torn in half, didn't he, by the bloater? So we know these guys are strong, and we see him just basically just go through the blocks like maybe 4 or 5 hits, and he was through. So yeah, Tommy. Meanwhile, he's suiting up Ghostbuster style with his flamethrower. I did very much think that the 4 of them stood there. Gets his pack on, he's like, here we go, ready to tear shit up with the flame. But unfortunately, as soon as they kind of break through, 2 of them run away straight away, which I think is nice, a nice like human touch of like, you can be as brave as you want, but like that would happen in reality. Like, you are, when you see that horde coming around the corner of Main Street, you're gone, right? It's like being brave.
Them 2 are flamethrower for duty going forward now.
Oh yeah. They don't get to stay on that. Main Street is absolutely flooded by infected. And it was quite interesting to see how kind of phase 2 panned out, because again, very tactical. People on the roofs, on balconies, off the ground floor. We have the advantage with rifles and such from above. But there's just so many of them. They just flood in like a river, don't they? You can see Tommy taking a few out with a flamethrower, which again, tactically, I don't think a flamethrower works that well when there's like 20, 30 of them running at you. It's quite a specific action to set them on fire, but I don't think it slows them down quick enough for my liking. Don't know about you. I never used the flamethrower that much in the game, because all well and good setting them alight, but it doesn't really stop them.
I think it's useful in things like a boss fight where the boss is going to have a lot of health because it's going to do damage when you're not directly shooting.
Yeah.
But in-game logic, anyway.
Give him a good headshot any day.
What do you have available?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Do you have a rocket launcher? Probably not.
Not yet. We might see one at some point. And then eventually the bloater seemingly takes direct umbrage with Maria right on the top. If you notice that point where he almost like he's very sentient of like, who the hell is shooting me in the head? Looks right up and it's like, you up there, I'm coming for you. Tommy spots this and he's like, right, he's going for my wife, the mother to my child. This is Tommy's like proper hero moment where he's like, there's literally infected pouring around the streets around him, and he just doesn't. He's just laser focused on this big guy to get his attention.
I found it odd. This is the one issue I kind of had is you see loads and loads infected just run past Tommy.
Ignore him completely, yeah.
Yeah, I found that odd.
I did as well. And this is where, like, I guess Tommy is trusting the guys on the rooftops to protect him in that moment. But you would
see
think
him running past them, it's like
they go for him straight away. Right? And this is where I guess it goes back to the show, different from the game. Where's the hive mind at play here? Like, do they have a specific focus to get to? Like, are they trying to get to the women and children so they can ignore Tommy for now? Because, like, that's the, and almost like they're blind to basically their main objectives. So Tommy's like, well, actually, it doesn't really matter if we take him down or not, because we need to get to the goal. We can sacrifice as many of the regular clickers and infected as we can, as long as we get to our objective, which is, I guess, the women and children, possibly. I don't know.
I feel it's like one you're not meant to think too much about.
Yeah, it makes for a good scene.
When you're playing the game, you need to understand the rules of the game because you have to stick to the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
In the TV, they're looking to make a good scene and they're trying to set Tommy up for his hero moment.
Absolutely, yeah. Tommy's very much the hero. He distracts the big fella. He's like, shoots him in the head a few times. He's like, hey, over here, follow me. Almost like Jeff Goldblum with the flare in Jurassic Park and the T-Rex. He's like, hey, over here. Tommy runs down a side alley, lures the blood away from the crowds, and we get an epic scene with the flamethrower, full-on effect. He torches that guy, but it keeps pushing forward. We see him almost have like about 3 God of War rage moments of like he powers back up, takes another few steps, and you use that really clever zoom in on the meter, on the flamethrower, yeah. And you see it and you're thinking like, we've all been in that situation in a game, right, where you're running out of bullets and they just keep coming, and it's like shit.
My girlfriend is like, if I was Tommy, I'm looking for a way of trying to just get past him quickly.
Yeah, quick shuffle. I mean, when he went into the alleyway, I was like, just climb or hide. Yeah. Don't stand there growling at the guy. Like, take cover.
Yeah, there was some boxes and stuff he could have climbed up.
Or hid behind and just like knuckled, like just hid. And like, we don't know what bloaters like vision.
Get on the rooftop.
Right? Yeah. But again, we're waiting for that epic moment. Torches him, and then we kind of see just before you think all is lost, that's one crispy mushroom, drops to the floor dead. I would definitely put a bullet in his head or two just to make sure.
Just go.
But you can see like the relief in Tommy's face is like, I was just about to be ripped apart. But you know what? Hero moment. He stood his ground, did his rage shout out moment. He then returns to the main street, I guess. There's swarming off in every direction, taking people down. You almost like feel like they're trying to go for that point where he's about to lose. Like he's just so outnumbered. He's only got a pistol left. His flamethrower's exhausted. What's he going to do? Then we get Maria doing her very best Mr. Burns impression, Richie, which is...
Release the hounds.
Absolutely. All the good boy doggos get released from the cages, about 20 of them or more. And we kind of see him sweep in like the cavalry and just rip the throats out of these infected left, right, and centre. Does make me think, could have released them a little bit earlier, not gonna lie, before they lost like the first group of people and such.
Maybe that was part of the plan, was for maybe Tommy, his next stop was to release the dogs.
Yeah.
But because he got bogged down with the bloater, Marie took the act proactively and go, he's not going to be able to do that, I'll have to go.
Yeah, quite possibly. This was the one part I did think the dog CGI when they hit the clickers felt a little bit off for me, where I think like just the physics of the dogs like jumping into them, like, again, without keep going back to the Lord of the Rings comparisons, but like, when the cavalry hit the Urukai and like totally wiped them out. I know dogs are smaller, so you're not going to get that impact, but something felt quite rubbery about the way they were hitting and like ricocheting around in amongst the action. Yeah, I mean, how are you going to test that in real life and get the great 1-for-1 dynamics and movement? But yeah, it didn't take me out of it because it was pretty cool just to see the dogs come in and save the day, essentially. Good doggos. And maybe unlike the game, we won't actually see loads of dogs get killed. We'll actually see them just be the heroes as they deserve to be. But yeah, seemingly the day's saved, I guess, from this point in Jackson. We don't really know any more after this, but like the bloater kings big boy bloaters taken down, the dogs are released. Things are seemingly on the upward swing. We then pull away from all the destruction back to the quiet of the ski lodge, Richie, and we see the fireflies. They're out shouting for Abby, Owens, Abby, and then horses arrive. And then it's that culmination of like, I think everyone was like with Joel and Dina especially, of like, oh, now there's like 8 on 2. Essentially, they get inside. Abby, like, you can obviously they're very cold. I think they allude to Dina having frostbite.
Yeah. Interesting enough, the blizzard was an actual real blizzard.
All right, okay.
They actually filmed in the
I mean,
blizzard.
it looked cold as shit, to be fair.
Yeah.
They shot in Calgary, right? Canada?
But yeah, you could see like, I think Dina is one of the reasons why Joel decides to go with Abby, because I think he's looking at Dina and seeing how much she's suffering.
Yeah.
He needs to get her out the cold.
Yeah.
And Abby's solution is closer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Joel, without saying it, Joel's probably planning to go up to the lodge, leave Dina there, get Abby and her friends, and then go back down to the village.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tactical. And again, we know from episode 1 he's got a great relationship with Dina. So it's kind of that father role Joel plays so well of like, I need to save my daughter first, then I'll be on to the second family. But yeah, they all get inside and Abby's like, help them too. Dina's kind of Mel immediately starts just helping Dina with a frostbite. Again, clearly the medic. Dina's like asking a few questions like, oh, what does WLF on their badge mean? Like, who are these people? Because again, Dina and Joel, they don't know these people. They are strangers and they're trained to be curious about them. So yeah, Dina's straight in there with like, who are you? What are you doing here? Abby kind of, I think Joel says like, right, grab your guns, we'll go back out. And I think she kind of just calms it down to like, no, let's get our introductions out of the way. She very much, I think, feels like she's in control now. She's with her crew. They all know who Joel is. They all know their purpose for being there. It just casually goes like, I'm Abby. This is Owen. This is Manny. And then she I think she's like, this is Dina. Like, she knows Dina already. And then, you get that ultimate revelation. And he is Joel. And you get that one shot of like, just pan around to each of the Fireflies as they go, what? Group stunned Richie. I think Manny immediately, grabs Dina from Mel at gunpoint. And Joel doesn't even know what's happening still. He's radioing across to like ask for like, come in, radio control, come in, Tommy.
Yeah, he's looking out the window out down at Jackson and trying to get in touch with them. Yeah,
it's only I think when Dina's like, Joel, they've got a gun in my head, like what the fuck? And he's hands in the air, what's going on? Stripped of his weapons. They have like a little back and forth, like just take our shit if you're thieves or something. And that's when like Abby just takes control of the whole situation and she do we look like thieves to you? I think Joel points out, says, no, you look like military from somewhere, like you're clearly trained.
Military.
Prepared.
And he's like trying to he's trying to figure out what's going on, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's still totally in the back of his mind. He's like, the town's popping off down there. Dina's got a gun to her head. He doesn't even know where Ellie is in this situation as well, so he's got that to worry about. And then Abby kind of takes control and says like, we're going to put Dina to sleep. Again, Mel very reluctant. She's like, well, what are we doing? We're not here. Like, and she's like, she says, shut the fuck up or I'll smash her head in or something. Like, she actively screams at Mel and says like, just do it. Put Dina to sleep. Obviously, we need to get her out of the way. She has heard everyone's names now, and she's seen the WF badge.
This is one of the things I keep alluding to, where by switching Dina in to the situation, she's now a source of information for Ellie. Yeah,
she's seen their faces as well. So I'll do a question after she's been drugged and put to sleep. How much you would really remember coming around from those few more precious seconds before it happens, but obviously it's the plot. Dina's put to sleep. Joel's seemingly happy to go along with it because they say like they'll let her live. So that's again, as a father, I think Joel's like last thing is like, well, I can save Dina from this situation. They're clearly there for him. Yeah. Like they're all their eyes are on him. So
I think Joel's already clicked what's going on.
Yeah.
Well before they announced. As soon as he realizes the military, he probably goes, shit.
They're very specifically there for him. It's clear like that Abby is like, oh, okay, let's talk about you a little bit more. And we kind of get into this kind of like back and forth, like just monologue phase where the tones calm down from the battle. We're just with these characters in a room. And she quizzes him about, his appearance, like tall man, in his 60s, you would say. Quite handsome as the keeper. I don't know if this is just an inside joke about Pedro Pascal's like internet fame of like, oh, he is quite handsome actually. And then she asks him about like the last location he saw the Fireflies, and I think as you were alluding to there is like Joel knows. He doesn't even try and hide it really, does he? He's like, Salt Lake, bitch. Like, yep. He could have just went, I don't know who Fireflies are. I've never heard of the term Fireflies. I've lived in Jackson.
My name is Joel. It's Joel.
Yeah. It's Joe Linton from Newcastle.
Yeah.
I've lived in Wyoming, Jackson for 20 years with my brother Tommy. Like, we actually used to be Fireflies. Like, come and check that. Like, but then again, it goes back to the point in the game, doesn't it? That's like, it's so naive of them when Joel and Tommy stumble across them. They're like, oh, hey, thanks for helping us out back there. Like, I'm Tommy. This is my brother Joel. It's like, dude, use a fake name. Like, you've never met these people before, and Tommy straight up just gives it away immediately without even question. So naivety there, and then we get this here in this moment of getting back to the show where Abby just goes through. She's almost like she must have rehearsed this in her dreams in her head.
She's been thinking about this for 5 years.
Yeah. What if I ever confront the bastard? What will I be saying? And she kind of breaks down his crimes, right? Almost like he's on trial. He's held at gunpoint. He can't move. She's in total power, and she kind of goes through like, did you know how many soldiers you killed? Did you even look at them? Like, she very much is like just recounting the day of what happened. And then we get down to it where she's like, 18 soldiers and 1 doctor, and the doctor was her dad. And that's where I think we don't learn that until very, very deep into the game. You're meant to play as Abby and hate Abby for a long time at that stage. But I think, like to what we were talking about earlier in the show, of just like the importance of letting the audience understand, like, Abby's motivations are probably true to anyone if it happened to them in their life. And it's like, actually, as much as you're going to hate her for the things that are about to happen, she is justified in what she's doing. Just like Joel was justified in what he was doing. And then this is where the brilliance of Naughty Dog's storytelling really kind of comes full circle, isn't it? Of like, you can side with both, and both are right. And it's led us to this moment.
In the game, you can hate Abby for the 15, 20 hours you're playing as Ellie, no problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have 15, 20 hours of playing as Abby to come to empathize with her.
Yeah.
You don't get that in the TV show. You can't run the risk of everyone just hating Abby and that hatred being too complete that becomes irredeemable because or what she's about to do.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand her motivations before she does it for a TV show.
Yeah. Very interested to see how the conversation around this episode lands out there in the wild. Obviously, we all remember like the Red Wedding situation of Game of Thrones, and certain like key characters who the audience very much were rooting for got killed off. And I guess if you are a casual viewer of TV shows, and The Last of Us is one you've been recommended to, like when I speak to my parents who haven't watched the first 2 episodes yet because they've gone on holiday, they're getting back to watch these 2 back to back. And again, my mum and dad have not played the game, so I'm very curious to see what like an older generation's thoughts are on the events that are about to unfold happen. So I'm very looking forward to that one. But yeah, we find out then that it was Abby's dad. It was the innocent doctor in the hospital just trying to save humanity. And she goes a little bit more in depth, doesn't she, and says like, you killed him, shot him in the head, his brains were all over the floor, I had to look at them. The other nurses said you didn't even look at him when you walked past his body. Like, did nothing, and the soldiers, like, none of it meant anything to you. And we know from the finale of last season is like, it didn't. He was just in the zone about getting to Ellie. He was trying to protect his daughter, essentially, and stop her from being killed. And he did that at any means possible, right? But yeah, seemingly body count of 18 soldiers and 1 doctor. That's quite impressive for Joel. It's almost like he was at the end of his game and he'd leveled up all his weapons and his skills and attributes to take them down. But Abby doubles down. She says, like, we have rules back in Seattle with our group of militia about killing unarmed people. But to quote, she says, there are some things in this world that everyone agrees are just fucking wrong. And then you get the little subtle nuance from Pedro's performance there of like, he nods. He's like, I agree. I agree with you. Like, what I did, totally wrong, but would he do it all again? Absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting, those little subtleties that I guess you can get across with a human performance rather than a video game, like those little micro expressions and such, which Naughty Dog, as beautiful as their kind of motion capture and stuff is, there's just stuff you get out of a human performance that it is just elevated. Then the camera pans Richie out to the background, and what do we see lying against the wall?
The golf clubs.
The golf clubs. And I'd imagine, I'd be so curious, like, I'm going to watch it on YouTube. There's going to be so many, like, reaction videos of this scene out of like people who have played the game, people who haven't played the game, people who are watching it with their partner, who one has, one hasn't. I'm just really curious to see over the next week of like how these reaction videos pan out and people's reactions. Like when they see the bag, do they go, oh, they're not going to use golf clubs, are they? And the person who's played the game's gone, here we go, ready to tee off. But yeah, Abby goes over, she pulls a golf club out of the bag. She does go to continue clearly a rehearsed monologue and go deeper on Joel, and I think this is where Joel just realised at this stage, like, she's going to kill me. So we get the brilliant line of, oh, just shut the fuck up and do it already. Which, different to the game, I think in the game he says earlier on, doesn't he? He's like, oh, just get whatever speech you've got rehearsed over with and get on with it. And then that's where we get the line which she says here, where she turns around with the golf club. You stupid old man. You don't get to rush this. Bang, bang, bang. 3 swings. And he's already... Actually, you know what? I've not even mentioned the point where she shoots his leg off. Where's that at in this?
I think...
It's before she starts a monologue.
Yeah. I think, isn't it?
It must be just as soon as Dean is unconscious.
Yeah, I think it is just as she's about to start a monologue. She shotguns him in the knee.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, it's the bit, I think, when she gets confirmation about the Fireflies thing, she says, oh, at least you're honest. And then turns around immediately from getting that, like, the truth out of them. Bang. Then she gets Mel to tourniquet it, which again, Mel's reluctant to, like, oh, I'm going along with this torture essentially. So yeah, apologies there, but yeah, it's again only seen this twice in the last 24 hours, so details are slim pickings. Yeah, so his leg's tourniquet, it's already busted open. We know he can't move, and yeah, she takes 3 big chunky swings at his already damaged leg, which I actually prefer because I think in the game she hits him in the head, right, and it cuts to black, and then we go back to Ellie, I think, in the forest looking for Joel. I think her taking it out on his leg, you just get to hear the pains, the blood curdling, painful screams of Pedro Pascal.
The thing is, she's not going for the head. Very simply, she doesn't want to kill him yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could bust open someone's head clean off straight away. So it does make more sense logically. We then cut to Ellie outside in the storm still. She sees the kind of horse prints where Dina and them and Joel headed uphill. Jackson again off in the distance smoking away. Ellie then we see Ellie arriving very quickly outside of the lodge through the window. And we can kind of hear now Abby kind of beating Joel with her bare hands, and it cuts to inside the lodge, and you can see this, his face is just fucked up at this point. Don't know how many blows she's landed. I'm surprised her knuckles, because she's not the Abby character from the game. She is like a much smaller girl, so
she beat him off enough to snap a golf club.
Yes.
Then switch to her hands.
Yeah, you hear it actually in. I watched New Rockstars do a really good like detailed breakdown of it, and when she hits him with the third time and the camera kind of pans away, you hear the club land on the floor, like snap off in the sound effects. So clearly, like, I mean, golf clubs are fragile, right? I know they've got a big weight on the end of them, but they're generally just like a thin tube. Back to the off point about the fence, like, yeah, exactly, they're hollowed out and stuff. So I guess if you're hitting someone's solid leg, like, chances are you might snap it off in the end. So yeah, we see the bruises, the face. Joel's like just been beaten to pretty much within an inch of his life. I think his eyes are busted open. God knows how much like blood loss trauma he's now got. No one else doing this again, just Abby. This is just Abby who's just going to town on this guy while everyone else just has to watch. Like if I was Owen and I was dating Abby at this point, I'd be like, might want to rethink this relationship. Yeah. Like she's like absolute going psycho on this guy. Ellie sneaks.
She has a bit of a temper.
Seemingly, just as does Ellie. Ellie, when she's in the moment, goes into a blind rage as well. We saw that with David. Remember when David tried to get frisky with her in one of the earlier episodes last season? And yeah, she went to town on David's face. And even when Joel saved her, that took a while to kind of snap her out of that moment. So yeah, Ellie enters the house. She can hear all the muffled sounds, very reminiscent of the game when you kind of sneak around. You can hear something happening as you make your way towards like that door at the bottom of the room. Ellie enters the room, sees Joel on the floor, immediately goes to obviously save him, attack, stopped by Manny. I think a bullet ricochets off somewhere. I don't think it hits anyone or anything, but everyone in the room is immediately on alert. She gets like knocked down to the ground. Someone, I can't recall who sits on top of her, but they basically like pin her down. She starts screaming. It's the realization, I guess, of what happens. Comes to light. She's screaming to Joel, like, Joel, get up. Joel, fucking get up. And I did like in this moment, which they added in to the show, is like you see him lift his head ever so slightly. Like he manages, even though he's like totally fucked at this point. His legs don't work. He must be in so much pain, or I guess numb to it all. Maybe he can't probably even see. He can barely hear what's going on, but I think he just knows it's Ellie. He's like he needs to try, and
he tries.
He does try. She's and just get up. Just like the performance from like Bella Ramsey and stuff here as well. It's just phenomenal. I mean Pedro as well. Like just phenomenal, right? Everyone involved, in fact, is just like it has you on the edge of your seat. Like what's going to happen? And I guess this is the point where, leading up to this, if you are just a casual viewer and you don't know anything about the game, you must be thinking this is where Ellie breaks in, saves the day.
You're probably now expecting either Ellie or Tommy or someone to burst in and take them down and saves the day or whatever.
Jesse swings in through the window, top floor, takes a few of them out. Yeah. No, that's not what happens. Camera shifts away from Joel's face on the floor to Abby's boots as she picks up the snapped end of the golf club, which, again, in the game, he's just hit to death with the golf club. I don't know about you. How did you feel when you saw like the sharp end of the metal on the floor? I was like, oh, this death's going to be different. I was like, shit.
Yeah. It's Owen actually tells her to end it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he leans in and says like that, it's gone on way too long. And now Ellie's there. It makes sense that he would, again, I guess, take charge and say like, they found us. We can't hang around here any longer. If she's found us, how long until the rest of us are found? So yeah, it's a tactical choice, but yeah.
I think they changed the way she finishes it because it's a TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose Pedro Pascal has experience getting his head caved in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel this is less grotesque. It's a less grotesque approach, and it's not needed that the way it happens in the game.
Yeah, the violence is already portrayed anyway, so how
in
how
the
can
game
you end the scene?
The camera is fully focused on Ellie as the last swing, as Abby swings.
Yeah, you kind of see Joel's head in the shot, but you don't. It's from behind, so you are focusing on Ellie as that kind of last swing comes in, and then it's done. But yeah, in this one we kind of get the reverse of we know there's a sharp object. Abby leans over Joel's body and just delivers the final blow to his neck, and you get that just snip of sound where it just hones in on absolute silence. He's dead. So she goes through the side of his neck, back of his neck,
straight through
just all the way through, big sharp bit of metal. And they've done it. Joel is dead. Ellie immediately pivots to you almost get that last gasp of no, and then
it's the desperation of screaming, Joel, fucking get up, that desperation. When she resigns, then the anger.
Yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill every last one of you. I'm gonna kill screaming. This is where I think Manny, who did get cut by a knife, I don't know if he got cut on the hand or the face, because in the game we alluded to it last episode, but there's a few more of them in the video game, and I think it's the younger guy Jordan, I think, who gets cut across the cheek. Yeah, and he's pissed off. He's wants to kill Ellie. I think in this one they've kind of swapped that out for Manny, where Manny gets cut, I think, across the hand, and he wants to kill her. And Owen steps in and goes no, we're not killing any more people. Again, taking charge. But at this point, he runs over and just gives Ellie a swift kick to the chest. Broken ribs, right? One or two, most likely.
Oh, easy, yeah.
It's quite a small girl being absolutely hoofed on the floor by a big bloke. Renda's absolutely breathless. Can't talk anymore. She just has that harsh, raspy breathing where clearly problems right now. They all leave, gather things quickly, leave. I think Manny says pendejo or something, which it must be Spanish for asshole or whatever like that. He doesn't spit on Joel, which was something big in the game, which made me immediately hate Manny. Is not only did they kill him in the game, but then when he leans in and kind of spits on him and calls him a pendejo or something, it's spitting on someone you've already killed is that's the last sign. But being on Joel's side, it's fuck you, I'm gonna get you later on in this game. Whereas they didn't do it on the show. They kind of gave Manny that he's kicked Ellie in the chest, but the
She
refrain
did slash
from
out
that.
with a knife.
She did, but again, I think like spitting on the body is that just like ultimate. Like it doesn't seem to be in the characters of this group in the show.
Yeah, it goes back to they seem more reluctant. I think it's more believable. They still hate Joel.
Yeah.
But they would have been quite happy to just put one bullet in his head and walk away.
Yeah, I agree. But instead, because of the nature of it all now, they've all left. Ellie's on the floor, can't breathe. She drags herself with her, I guess, what she perceives to be her final breaths, possibly. I don't know what pain she's in, but she might also think, I'm done in this situation. She doesn't know if they're going to come back and kill her either, I guess. But she's just laser focused on Joel right now. She crawls herself over, removes the golf club from his neck, kind of nestles right into him, father and daughter, holds his hand, and I guess they kind of just lay together for we don't know how long, until I guess like caught up with by presumably Dina wakes up. Worst way to wake up, by the way, from a drug-induced sleep to finding your best friend on the floor, nearly possibly dead, and your essential other surrogate father maybe absolutely beaten to a pulp.
I assumed it was Jesse because Jesse knows where she is.
Yeah, I mean, again, Jesse could have just broken in at any time, but clearly he's going to be an hour, half an hour, 20 minutes. Even he might just go. I mean, the start of next week's episode might open with him coming in and dealing with the aftermath. We don't know. But yeah, for Dina to go to sleep, seeing Joel just stood there with his hands in the air, to then wake up to see that must be like, oh, that's gutting. But yeah, they just kind of lay together as the camera pans up, and then the song kicks in through the valley. And immediately, I'm sure you recognize this as well. As soon as it started singing, it was like, that's Ellie, aka Ashley Johnson from the game, doing the song, which we've probably all heard so many times. It was the original song from the first trailer for The Last of Us Part 2, where I think it was, if you remember it, it was like a building. Ellie's playing guitar with like the window open and stuff, and there's like a body on the ground, and she's playing this song. I remember it was like an E3 presentation, and she's playing the song, she's singing the lyrics. It cuts across all the bodies in the corridor, and she's talking about like revenge and killing people and stuff. And then it opens the door, and you see a man walk through, and he gets right to the door frame where Ellie sat there. And that's when Joel delivers the line. He's like, "You sure you want to go through with this, kiddo?" She's like, "I'm going to kill every fucking last one of them." And the crowd pops off, and E3 is like, "Oh shit!" And it says The Last of Us Part 2, and I can remember everyone being insane for it. Like, you should definitely go watch it on YouTube if you want that bit of hype. But obviously, utilized very different here. That was a bit of a misdirect in that trailer because Joel never actually went there, and the people Ellie was talking about killing were him.
Yeah, Neil Druckmann says in the Last of Us official podcast that he actually wrote that scene purely for the teaser, that it was never intended to ever be in the game.
Such a misdirect, isn't it? Like people thinking, "Oh, I'm going to play a whole second game with these two," and it's like, actually, Joel ain't going to be there for it. And yeah, we kind of were, as the song plays, we're left with the Fireflies leaving the scene, heading off into the snowy distance, presumably back to Seattle. We see the aftermath of the battle. The wounded are there. There's a really good shot, actually, Richie, where it pans over the battlements, and you kind of see a guy shows his wound where he's been bitten on the wrist to someone, and he hands the guy his gun to put him out of his misery. So he's like, he just accepts his fate straight away, and you can see them kind of taking people down. It takes like a few hours, right, for the I mean, when Tess was bit, she said it takes probably 6, 7, 8 hours to actually start to turn properly. So these people who've been bit, they've got a few hours left in them at least, but in the aftermath of this battle, they've just gone, you see a couple of the dogs still ripping the throats out of some on the floor. But seemingly they've won, right? Tommy and Maria embrace.
Win is a stretch. They survived.
They survived. There's no more left. And then the final scene is, we see Ellie on a horse with Jesse, Dina still looking a bit groggy, maybe just waking up still, on horseback, heading back to Jackson through the snow. Ellie obviously visibly torn apart, glancing back across the back of the horse, where we see a rope dragging along seemingly the body of Joel wrapped up in a white blanket through the snow with some blood stains on it. As we fade to black and the song kind of wraps up. And I don't know if you noticed as well, like the credits were just silent. There was no song. There was no music. It was just quiet.
Just let you linger on what you've just seen.
And I'd imagine for a lot of people, that's insane. Like, what were 2 episodes into season 2 and they've just killed off their main guy? And the internet daddy Pedro Pascal himself. And Yeah, what an episode, Richie, and what a finale to it. It's like, I think a lot of us, talking to my wife included, we were thinking, like, do they save Joel's death for the end of the season?
That's what I kept predicting. I kept predicting that they extend how much time you spend in Jackson, and this scene would be maybe not in the last episode, but the penultimate episode.
Yeah, I was on a similar vein where I figured that they would build up Abby and the Salt Lake Fireflies a little bit more, so we do start to realize, like, well, Abby's like got reasons for her own. She's really likable within her friend group. Owen's really sound. Manny's quite funny. Mel's just the medic who wants to help out. In fact, this episode we saw very little of Nora in being involved in any of it. So how that unravels over the coming weeks should be interesting. But yeah, I thought we would have 2 or 3 episodes kind of building up their dynamic before then revealing of, like, oh, actually, it's Abby's dad, and that's why they're after this. And they've just kind of ripped the bandage off with that one and went straight into it.
Yeah. Again, going to the Last of Us official podcast, they said these 2 episodes are basically the prologue to the season. So, but they didn't want to do this moment in episode 1.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to give a little bit of time to reintroduce Jackson before they did this. Yeah. But they also didn't want to linger. They wanted to get this done.
Yeah, they need to
That's
set
why
the
it's
scene.
episode 2. Yeah.
And upon reflection, I think, again, it's a great choice, because then now the show can continue and people can come to the realization, love it or hate it, Joel isn't the main character to this story. It's always been Ellie's story more than his to a degree. And then by proxy of Joel and Ellie's story is Abby and her story is going to come into it and play a major part of the overall story that Naughty Dog told in the original games, is that this cycle of vengeance and doing things for love ultimately is going to happen. And we didn't really touch on it earlier on, but the situation now we have here is that cycle, that unbroken cycle, is 19-year-old Abby witnesses, or not witnesses, but her dad is murdered by Joel to protect his daughter. And we've literally just now witnessed Ellie see her dad murdered at the exact same age. Ellie's 19. Abby was 19 when her dad was killed. So now Ellie's got essentially this
cycle continues.
This 5-year cycle towards where Abby's at now, of hating Abby and wanting to kill her for what she did and all the people who were there present. And it's like, are we just going to be in the same situation again where, they're doing things for the right reason, revenge for your father's death, killing everyone to protect Ellie, and now Ellie's going to jump into that cycle of, like, she's going to hunt this group down. And how many people are going to suffer the consequences for the back of it? Who knows?
Exactly.
But brilliant episode all around. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? I know we get into our particular performance and stuff, but just that final scene, man, they did it.
I know.
Like, they did it. What did you think of the comparisons to the game then overall? Satisfied with it all? Did it do it justice?
I mean, it's basically shot for shot. Like, I think it very much did it justice, and it goes into, like, things like performance of the week, moment of the week, but should we just go into that now?
Yeah, if you want to. We always end our shows with 3 points: performance, moment, and best game adaptation of the week. So let's kick things off, Richie, with the performance of the week.
It's hard because of how amazing Abby and Joel were, but I think Bella Ramsey as Ellie in that moment, that was as I mentioned in the game. The camera is focused on Ellie as Joel gets killed. So to have to nail that complex emotions, Bella Ramsey nails it. Yeah.
I'd probably echo that. You're right. I think they all have the great parts to play. I think Abby, Caitlin Dever did fantastic to kind of portray the innocence of the events that led her to this, but then really double down on actually, I can be ruthless when I need to be, and it's all built up to this over 5 years. And I think it was so close, but just that outpouring of emotion, that clear relationship that Bella Ramsey has with Pedro Pascal, where seeing him
they have actually a good relationship in real life.
They're like best mates. Yeah, it's absolute raw, and I think that pivot, and they talk about it on the official podcast again, is that pivot of asking her to show utter helplessness in the moment, but then immediately have to pivot towards, actually, I'm going to kill you all. Like, we need you to go so serious so quick. And I think it's all well and good reading that on a script, but to actually portray that in the moment, like that, a range of emotion, is phenomenal. So I would completely agree with that.
To be terrified by her anger.
Ooh, that's a quote right there. Maker of Chaos in the chat says, I think overall the scene was on par with the game scene, but you did like it a little bit better. I think I would settle on, I think I did prefer the video game one more, but I would have to let it sit and maybe upon reflection. And I've played the game so many times now, and I've witnessed that horrible scene so many times. It never feels better. The more you watch it, it never comes around. But talking about it more, I think, the scene's great. So performance of the week, Bella Ramsey, once again. Moment of the week from the whole one. Did the big battle of Jackson work out for you, or does the moment of the week ultimately come down to that scene?
The Battle of Jackson did come out to me, but I'd even want to give like a nod to like Abby, the moments up to when she meets Joel. I guess she's trying to escape the infected, but I don't think you can look past the ending.
I mean, it's the most ruthless thing, isn't it? It's like us reviewing the Game of Thrones episode with Pedro Pascal in, and like that twist right at the very end, and then it cuts to the credits when they're having the fight in King's Landing, isn't it? And the mountain's there, and it's the mountain and the Viper, and you're like, oh, he's got this. You couldn't review that episode and not have that as the moment of the week. So I think very much for this is all as good as all the action was. That I thought the fight, considering it wasn't even in the game, it did make me think, oh man, imagine how cool it would have been to play this in the game. Like you're Ellie or you're Tommy or whoever, and you get to run up on the battlements, take a few out with the sniper after you've done the sniper tutorial. You can imagine running along back and forth the wall and setting the barrels off on fire, and then they're like, right, there's been a breach, and then you have to fight a bloater in the courtyard. Like that would have been such a video games thing to have, and we kind of get to see it play out on screen instead. Is really, really good. We're just going for Joel's death, I guess. Is the moment of the week.
It's such a moment that it's hard to look past it.
Yeah, and the repercussions of the season and how that's going to, the ripple effects of everyone from like Tommy's character. I'm really curious on next week's episode just to see like Dina's reactions to it. How does Jesse cope with all this? Of course, Ellie's in the aftermath of Ellie. And Tommy, again, I think Maker of Chaos mentions in our live chat of just like Tommy being the hero of Jackson, and then now him leaving to potentially pursue these Fireflies with Ellie and Dina and Jesse is he's the town's hero, and he's got a child in the show as well. And
that's it. I alluded to this at the start of the show. By switching Tommy out for Dina, it now gives a more complex decision for Tommy to make. Yeah. Because of the Battle of Jackson, which doesn't happen in the game. So Tommy being as motivated as Ellie to go after Abby and the rest of the Fireflies makes sense. But now he's going to have that conflict to deal with. Yeah,
I'm really interested to see how it's going to play out. It's so weird how, like, because we've had this moment now, the show, and I guess us as well as people who knew about that, like that's the biggest spoiler, isn't it? Is like going into this being a game wanker, not a book wanker like Game of Thrones was. Like talking to our friends about it who haven't played the game and being like, what did you think of it? Like I think after this point onwards, there's not ultimately that many like nothing as crazy as this like going to happen. They're probably going to save a lot for season 3, to be fair, but I'm excited.
The big surprise moment of the game.
100%. And then we round out the show, of course, linking it back in with the video game, is what is the best gamer adaptation of the week as well for you, Richie? What would you say?
It's the same moment for me.
It is
a video game. It's a video game adaptation moment in itself, and it is the moment of the week. So,
I think I mean, it's a bit. We can't go too long on it, but I think even from just the moment, Abby, in the fence scene, I would say, if you tie like the fence scene to them being rescued, to being on horseback, to then getting into the ski resort, to then the shotgun, the golf club, the speech, all, and then Ellie and stuff right at the very end. I think if you stitch all that ultimate, like the build up to the death, like that, it's not quite one for one of the game, but it's as true to the source materials you could get, whilst adapting it and improving it in some ways and changing it in some ways. it did just feel like I was playing that moment from the game just without the controller in my hand. I had all the same emotions. Even though I knew it was coming, it still had that shock reaction from me. And I would have to agree with you on that one. Again, a big part of the battle never took place. So there's actually very little to compare to the game this week, unlike previous episodes. But yeah, Joel's death.
I suppose there was the weed farm.
I think that scene's going to play out in a later episode, though. I still feel like Ellie and Dina are going to have that intimate moment somewhere.
They're going to move it somewhere else.
Yeah, we know Ellie did take weed from Eugene's stash. Like, she was packing the gas mask in, was she was going to keep the bong mask. She's got the weed, so I feel like, maybe in the future, after these events have settled a little bit and they get their privacy and they're out on the road together, I think we could see an intimate moment, maybe when they're buckled down in the theatre and they're looking for some shelter or something, but we'll find out.
Have you noticed as well, it feels like they're elevating Jesse's responsibilities within Jackson.
Yeah.
Where during the game, he just feels like another dude in Jackson.
Yeah.
He's not, but it seems like Ellie actually makes a comment saying, we all know you're going to be the next leader of Jackson.
Yeah, she does.
But you're not that yet, when she's stealing the weed.
Yeah, he's well revered within the group. So yeah, really looking forward to next week, just because I'm kind of I don't know where this is going to play out to. And just 5 weeks left. So we've got the standalone episodes with Eugene, so that kind of takes away from this main story. It's not, the trailer, they release the next week ahead, it's kind of snippet. It's a very, very short one. It just kind of shows a couple of the characters looking sad. It doesn't really give anything away. So it might be maybe the beginning and then we pivot to the standalone. But I think after Joel's death, they're going to want to deal with the aftermath immediately. So I think episode 4 might be the standalone.
I think there's something to be said for letting it hang for another week. So if you're watching it week on week, it's that kind of tease where we're not going to resolve that yet.
You not think?
Yeah, I think they could be. The looking around sad could be because of Eugene, not Joel.
Quite maybe. That's a good point.
And I feel this is because we've already kind of set up Eugene in the last 2 episodes a bit. I feel like we could go into Eugene next, but end the episode with the departure from Jackson. Yeah,
quite possibly. Imagine if they go full circle and it turns out Eugene is the one who killed Sarah in episode 1. Season 1. It's the cycle event. Joel found out he somehow killed Sarah.
Maybe.
I'm still curious about what it's going to be. I'm wondering if somewhere along the line, because he grows his weed, what's his reason for Jolene? And he used to be a Firefly, so I've heard rumorings of imagine if Joel gets wind of Eugene being an ex-Firefly, has links to the Fireflies, and he hears something about all the shit popped off in Salt Lake. This dude killed, and he's like, oh shit.
Ellie's safe or something.
We've never seen that in the game of Joel having to deal with someone who might be able to tell their secret to others. And how Joel, but then I feel like that goes against Joel's character. He wouldn't kill an innocent man, but then if it's to protect Ellie's secret, he probably would.
Joel wouldn't kill an innocent man.
Yeah, I mean, this is why it's so divisive, right? And one doctor. But it's to save Ellie. And again, I would do the same for my daughter. So we'll see. But we'll have to wait until next week's episode to find out. But that has been it for this week's episode of the ClickerCast. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. Don't forget, if you liked everything you've seen here, don't forget to run along to the comments, stalk at us on social media at GamerGuild TV, clicker that notification bell, and blow to yourself on Captain Blow to yourself on all of our other amazing content we do have here, because we do a lot. We have live streams up, we've got Pokemon playthroughs at the moment, we do have the GamerGuild podcast where we get together and round up all the weekly game news here on YouTube and on podcast services every Monday 8 a.m. that goes live. We've got a very vibrant Discord, we've got a wonderful audience out there, so thank you for tuning in, but above all else, Richie, endure and survive. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much for tuning in to the ClickerCast. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
We've been GamerGuild TV. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.